Endurance and Believer had been married for 5 years with no child. They trusted in God and hoped that one day God will give them a child. As much as they prayed and hoped that their prayers would be answered one day, they also did the needful by seeking medical attention from doctors. They kept hopping from one hospital to the other, but to no avail. They were not too poor, but not rich either. It was Christmas Eve, and the couple were home spending time together. And later that evening, they decided to watch a beautiful movie on TV. A television station was showing a movie on the birth of Jesus Christ, so they agreed to watch that. While they were watching, tears came down the eyes of Endurance, and her husband, Believer, turned to her and said to her not to worry, and that very soon they will have a child in the name of Jesus. Endurance felt sad and started to cry, so she stood up and ran out. It was a few minutes past 12 a.m., and the rain was pouring when she fled outside. Endurance knelt down in the middle of the street and was crying to God to answer their prayer for once, and immediately terrifying tender struck. Believers rushed to pick her up from the road and brought her back inside. He consoled his wife, and that night they made out. In the later part of January, Endurance had missed her period, and upon finding out why, they realized they were pregnant. 9 months later, they gave birth to a beautiful boy who came out with gray hair. They were shocked and didn't understand why their son had gray hair, and the doctors couldn't explain why that was so either. They tried several means to understand what was happening, but to no avail, and this became talk of town. The couple was so concerned, so they started seeking answers by visiting a church priest, fetish priest, and an imam, but they still couldn't get the answers they were looking for. They decided to dye his hair black color. They woke up the next day, and the child's hair had turned gray again. Eventually, they gave up trying. They named the child Ababio, which means someone who has returned from the past. A few years had gone by, and Ababio was doing all sorts of wonders. He was very different from the other children. He was a very intelligent child, but had low self-esteem because of the color of his hair. He was being bullied by some of his schoolmates at school, while others defended him, but due to this, he didn't like school. Ababio had answers to strange things, things elders couldn't get answers to. He possessed some gifts. About 95% of his dreams came true, and he told his parents every dream he had. His parents, in turn, relayed the information to whoever it was meant for and provided measures to be taken. He talked about past stories that had occurred even before he was born. He possessed extraordinary strength as a child and could crack a coconut open with his hands. He could also mold clay into beautiful pots without being thought. When Ababio got to the age of 10, he wanted to quit school as he was tired of being bullied because of his gray hair. His hair had never been shaved ever since he was born. On the day he decided to quit school, he came home and started to shave his hair off in anger. His parents were shocked and cautioned him to stop, but he wouldn't listen. He shaved it off, and the drops of his hair on the floor turned into worms. They were terrified, so they started shouting for help, and the neighbors ran into their house to see what was the cause of the alarm. Ababio fainted and was rushed to a nearby hospital. He woke up a few hours later and was taken home for further treatment. He woke up the next morning and, shockingly, his hair had fully grown back again. Ababio couldn't eat for 2 days. He only drank light soups with no meat or fish. He also couldn't step out for a whole week out of shame because he was the talk of the town. 6 months later, Ababio's mother fell ill, and they needed money for treatment, but they could not afford to get enough money for her treatment. His mother's illness became severe to a point where her hair began to fall off. She grew lean and had pale skin. Ababio's father consulted several religious leaders to tell them what they could possibly do. And they all said the same thing, that they need to shave their hair as family to help in the healing process of their dying mother and wife. They were scared because of the experience Ababio suffered in the past when he cut off his hair. After deliberating with family for a few days, they decided to cut off their hair. They went to a barber shop together and shaved their hair at the same time. Ababio's hair changed into gold powder. The interpretation from the spiritual leaders showed that Ababio shaved this time with love, hence the gold. The first one he shaved with anger, hence the worm. The family was happy and his mother was well again. The family had to leave the village the following week because Ababio's life was in danger. The indigene of the village were after him. They had tried to kidnap him in the past few days when he stepped out from the house because of the gold dust his hair produced. Due to this, his parents decided to move to a new town where nobody knows them to start a new life. They became one of the prominent families in the new town, and people respected them, even though his hair color never changed. Ababio enrolled in homeschooling until he was 15 years old, where he went back to school. At that time, he was confident and was able to accept his identity and defended himself when someone tried to bully him. Believer, Endurance, and their son, Ababio, lived happily together as family. Thanks for watching. Your comments and likes mean a lot to me. Also, don't forget to subscribe and share. I love you all.